Okay. Changing topics again a little bit. The differences in the candidates on energy, on an energy policy.
I think the candidate McCain has, as he said on one of his town meetings, drill baby drill. I believe the Democrats have been a little slow on recognizing the necessity of drilling. But I also believe that you cannot solve the problem of energy solely by drilling. You've got to have multiple approaches to a very difficult problem, and they have not. They basically have emphasized the drilling.
Mm-hmm.
You have to develop the alternative energies. You have to conserve more than we have. Look, we are dependent upon this area of the world in the Middle East, probably the most unstable area in the world, for oil. And we have been for decades. Several weeks ago, I got a copy of a speech I gave on the floor of the House back in the 70s. You know you're getting old when you start to read your old speeches. And I guess that's the case in my situation. But honestly, I could give that same speech today. We've learned very, very little on energy for 30 years. So, okay, Barack Obama comes in and he said, look, I'm going to emphasize the development of alternative sources of energy. I'm going to say we have to conserve more with CAFE standards for automobiles and the like. And he has come around slowly, but he has come around to recognizing that you have to do some drilling too. Now, in doing the drilling, you have to be very, very insistent that it is done in an environmentally safe way. And I do think the technology has improved a lot here. It's a different issue than it was 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so you say, okay, Mr. Oil Company, you can drill, but you've got to enforce very tough, strict environmental regulations. And it's not just a matter of environmentally safe procedures at the site of the well. I was down in New Orleans the other day. A big barge going up the Mississippi River rams aground and spills oil all up and down the river for 20, 30 miles. Well, they looked into it. What happened? The guy that was pushing the barge up the river was unqualified. So it's not just a matter of environmental regulations at the source, but the transportation has to be rigorously reviewed, scrutinized to assure the very best practices.
I was at the JJ dinner earlier this spring.
You were?
Uh-huh. I have a picture of you right here on my computer. I'll show you in a minute.
Picture of what?
You and Obama.
Oh, yeah?
I thought it would go well with the article. But you just want to talk briefly again while we're inside here about why you think the average person would benefit from Obama. And you have, I assume you've worked closely with McCain, or you know John McCain personally.
I've known John McCain for a good many years. He's a good man.
Yes.
And clearly a courageous man. I think the two men are very, very different, not just in terms of the positions they have. John McCain is a fighter pilot. He's instinctive, prides himself on quick decisions, prides himself as being what I would call an intuitive politician. Barack Obama is very different. As you have noted, he's calm. He is very careful. He's cautious. He wants to understand the facts better. His natural instinct is as a conciliator. There's a very good illustration of this, and that's on the different reaction the two men had with regard to Georgia when Russia went into Georgia. Not Georgia, USA, but Georgia in the old Soviet Union. McCain immediately came out with a very tough, hard line against Russia, as did the Bush administration. Obama began asking questions. His reaction was more constrained. He was more conciliatory. He said, let's find out what our European friends in NATO think about this. Let's examine a little more about the president of Georgia and what he was trying to do. And what's interesting is that the Bush administration came over to Obama's view, and that's what the policy is today. We're more restrained and careful about it. Now, your question is about ordinary people, and the answer is that I believe that Obama's life is distinctly and uniquely American. He came from a family that was on welfare. He came from a mixed family, racially. He has a great empathy towards the people and their problems. I believe we have lived in a time when the policy of the American government has tilted very heavily toward the very wealthy people in this country. And Obama will shift that. He will shift the policy of the United States government towards ordinary middle-class Americans, giving middle-class Americans the tax break and not the people at the top of the income, being more sympathetic to their demands for health care. He's got a much more extensive health care program than McCain has. I think his heart is with the ordinary Americans, the middle-class Americans. The Republican policy of recent years, their heart has been with the very wealthy people of the country.
In some ways, when you talk about his heart being with the average person, I think that very much reminds me of Lee Hamilton.
Well, I hope so.
And your career here in the 9th District.
I hope so. That's where my instincts lie. And I'm impressed with Obama. I don't want to overstate my role in the Obama campaign. I'm a senior advisory group on foreign policy. Obama comes into a room, there are 5 or 6 people there. He's polite and courteous, but he goes around the room and asks every person to say something, whatever they want to say on any topic. He listens carefully, but beyond that, Barbara, he understands what you say. And then when his time comes to speak, he responds to your concern. He doesn't come into the room like a lot of politicians do and say, these are my 5 points, and I want to make sure you folks understand them. He really genuinely listens. He has his own point of view, no doubt about that. But his instinct is conciliatory. I believe the political skill that is most needed in the country today is the ability to build consensus, to bring people together. And I believe he has that skill. And the country will be better off when he leads it in that direction and when the Congress begins to practice a little more bipartisanship and consensus building.
Okay.
And before I cut off, I want to say that wonderful experiences I had in Jennings County over a period of years. This is a wonderful county for me to visit. Your father, Dick Mayer, I used to come in to see him every time I was back in Indiana. He was a very wise man, actually. He understood this county. Boy, let me tell you, he really understood the county. He knew the people of this county. And I would put more confidence in his judgment about how the county was moving than I would a poll, for example, because he knew the county so well. And usually a week or 2 before an election, I'd sit down with him and say, okay, Dick, tell me how this county's going to vote. Not just on my race, but all the way through. He did almost every one of them. He'd get them right.